Good to go.
Okay, we're going to call the September 14th Plan Commission meeting to order. This is going to be a little bit different. Our president, Wes Likens, of course, is not here, and we do not have a vice, as the vice president resigned from the board. So at this time, ask the five members here, do you want one of you to preside over the rest of the meeting, or do you want me to manage this? How would you like to move forward?
I would nominate Mr. Zimmerman to preside over the meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? John, you've got the board.
Okay. All right, let's all start with a word of prayer. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for all the many blessings that we have. As we enter into this fall season, and many farmers will be very busy in the field, we just pray that you will protect them and just keep safety in their minds at all times. Lord, we also lift up our military that is trying to protect us each and every day. The firefighters and the policemen, Lord, we just lift those up to you. We pray that you will keep those safe as they try to protect us. Lord, as we continue on our meeting today, we just pray that you will give us guidance, that you will have us make good decisions for the county. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Do the pledge allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do a roll call.
Yes, sir. Jerry Alexander,
Present.
Lindsey Brown,
Present.
Corey Bolander,
Here.
Tom Shepard, John Richwine,
Here.
John Zimmerman,
Here.
Wes Likens, and Denise Spooner.
Here.
All righty. We have the minutes in front of you from the last board meeting, August 10th. We need to approve the minutes.
I put a motion on the floor to accept the minutes as written.
Second.
Second.
McPherson, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes. You're up.
The first two items on the agenda, petition 2021 MSP 003 and 004. They are the final plats for Section 4 and Section 5 of Springbrook. Last Thursday, September 9th, the Technical Review Committee heard these two petitions and passed on a favorable recommendation. So at this time, what we need is certification from the Planning Commission that the Technical Review has forwarded that. And of course, I will need Wes's signature on the plats with the intent on taking that in front of the Board of Commissioners next week, if it's approved.
Do we need to have
A vote to certify.
a vote?
Yep.
Any questions from the board on this?
I'll add if I have copies of both plats here if you'd like to see them.
The Technical Review Committee has approved this or seen it, and
They passed a favorable recommendation
right.
last Thursday. It was unanimous.
Brad, who are the members of the technical committee?
It is myself, Jessica Baston, the county engineer, Tom Shepard, the county surveyor, Angie Cox, appointed by the Drainage Board, Casey Jones in mapping, and Brandy Fraser from Soil and Water Conservation, and then Joe Davis from the Health Department.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
pretty good qualifications there, I would say. Okay, so need a motion to, for favorable recommendation.
Put a motion on the floor for favorable recommendation for petition 2021 MSP-003.
Can we do them both at the same time, or?
Yes.
Can I ask a question about?
Sure.
How many homes is section 4?
Apologize, I didn't bring my report with me.
I'm going to ask the same question in section 5. So
I understand. There are 55 in section 4. And there are 50 in section 5. So 104 parcels.
So Lennar Homes, I just might add, is the second largest home builder in the country. So they're a pretty solid company, and we have a history already with them. So
I need to amend my motion, and we're gonna do, for 2021 MSP 0303004. Is that it?
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
yes, I'll second.
Okay, need a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Denise Spinner,
Yes.
Jerry Alexander,
Yes.
Lindsey Brown,
Yes.
Corey Bootlander,
Yes.
John Richwine,
Yes.
and John Zimmerman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-oh.
Okay, now.
Yeah.
I apologize, but
I apologize.
staff report in here.
Oh,
She's gonna go grab a copy. If it's okay, I'll go ahead and move on to something else I'm gonna talk
Sure.
about here a little later.
Where is Springbrook?
It is on the northwest corner of State Road 13 and 900 South. At the last meeting, Jerry had asked for information with regarding new home builds in Madison County this year. So I prepared a couple documents here. Yep. The first sheet is a graph, and it'll gives you the number of home builds over the last 10 years. And you'll see in 2020, we had 139 new homes, but the year before, we only had 59. And 59 was one of the higher years in the prior 9. Out of those 139 homes, 87 of those were in the Springbrook subdivision. Lennar built those. So roughly 72% of the permits last year for new homes were by Lennar. This year so far, we have 87 homes. We're on track for 124 by the end of the year if we continue this pattern. We have 53 of the homes that were built by Lennar this year, which comes out to about 61%. The second sheet shows you a chart that indicates the estimated home value by township and by year. And you can see that there's a very large jump in 2020. In 2019, we had approximately $17 million in new home value added to the rolls, and in 2020, it was 36.2 million. Wow. And obviously, Green Township was a large portion of that because that is where Springbrook is located. And actually 25.9 million.
Quick question.
Absolutely.
So Markville has 0, there was no growth in Markville?
Markville has now taken over their own planning, but prior to 2018, yes, there were no new home builds there. Now, there has been since, because I've spoken with their building inspector multiple times.
Boone and, was it Boone and Duck Creek been pretty slow over, right?
They're very rural.
And Van Buren, same way, right?
Correct. Yeah. And in Van Buren, Summitville also maintains their own planning.
Okay.
So,
Do you have the capability of we've got a market value approach to assessment now. So if somebody builds a house for $250,000, it should assess for the same thing. I'm just curious about what the assessed value has and that impact on our tax revenue it'd just be interesting. So
no, absolutely. I'll have to have a chat with Larry Davis and see what we can come up with.
yeah, that'd be good.
Now, obviously, we wouldn't be able to do that yet for 2021
And-
because many of the homes are still under construction.
And then
Sure.
a lot of the assessed value impacts all the other homes realistically in the whole county.
Yeah.
Particularly in a neighborhood, but it would be that would be very interesting to see how that would impact the whole county by new construction.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to assume most of those are probably capped out, so that's going to give you some idea what your gross is.
Correct. Was there any other information you'd like to have with regard to that?
No, that was, if you could throw that in at some point, that would be interesting.
Is there any way to gather the data from the other townships that have their own?
From the communities? I'd have to contact each one, and they'd have to be willing to share that. But there's about 14 of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might, as far as information is, at least the county council would be interested to know the inspection, how long it of the inspection process, the turnaround. I mean, when a builder is waiting on a county inspector, even a 1 week delay is a 1 week delay. And so if we, in terms of justifying your request for another inspector, it would be worthwhile to see if there's been any delay.
Well, they would be two different entities. We have the building inspector, of course, is going to review all construction. The proposal was for a zoning violation inspector.
Okay.
So they would be managing something completely different.
And you that's for a zoning violation, right?
Yes. Yep. The building inspector himself, we generally have inspections done within 24 hours.
Okay.
We ask that they give us that, or I'm not done, but within 24 hours, let me clarify this. We ask the builders to give us 24 hours before scheduling an appointment. In other words, the day before. But there's many times where we'll have somebody call in on a Monday and we're inspecting it on Tuesday.
So is it improving? I mean, like I built a new home 3 years ago, and my experience was not, I was ready, but it took several weeks for the previous Rick to show up. So is that actually improving?
If it took several weeks, that was probably when he was very ill. We had a couple periods where that had taken place, and we did not have another inspector at the time.
Yeah,
So you were
especially-
probably just happened to be in one of those periods.
Yeah.
Because typically, we're inspecting within a day or two of the call.
Okay.
I thought that's the way it was normally done, because
Yeah.
I had too many complaints about that.
Yeah.
Might be because it was you, they just don't want to inspect your house. I said it might be because it was you and they didn't want to inspect your house.
That was
Yeah.
also one of the reasons why we were pushing for another building inspector, because Rick just couldn't manage it anymore.
Okay.
He was one of the best inspectors. Well, he was an excellent inspector and hated to lose him. He was certified in 7 of the 8 certifications that you can have for construction. All 4 residential and 3 of the commercial. Okay.
My apologies.
Oh, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is petition 2021-W-003, and petition 2021-W-004 is also petitioned by the same owner. If it pleases the board, I'd like to discuss both of these at the same time. This particular parcel is vacant. There is no primary structure on the property. It's located on the east side of State Road 13, approximately a quarter mile north of West 1050 South. It is in Green Township in the Commissioner's 2nd District. The owner and petitioner is Teresa and James Wolfgang. And the first request is a waiver of the road frontage requirements. And the second is a waiver to use an ingress-egress easement for access. And this is in the Conservation Residential Zone District. Petitioner satisfied all documentation requirements, and also the notices were placed in the newspaper and mailed out accordingly. This parcel contains approximately 30.3 acres. And when I say it's vacant, there was no home on the property, but there is a detached garage, 672 square feet, and a 900 square foot utility shed on the property. The Lick Creek regulated drain crosses the parcel towards the northwest of the property, and there is a spatial flood hazard area along Lick Creek. And it does extend into this property a little bit. Base flood elevation is 810.3 feet. All the surface water sheds from the southeast to the northwest into Lick Creek. And this is this particular property has a lot of elevation change on it. The request would allow the parcel to be split to establish a 3.5 acre parcel located near the center of the property. And the parcel would contain absolutely no road frontage and would be accessed by an ingress-egress easement over an existing access drive. In the Conservation Residential Zone District, we require 75% of the lot width to have road frontage. So if you had a 100 feet wide lot, you would need a minimum 75 feet of road frontage. This particular proposed parcels or lot is very difficult to determine what the road frontage would be because it's almost a round shape. It is definitely shaped a little differently. The property is, as stated, is conservation residential, and all surrounding properties are zoned the same. All of the surrounding properties have the same use. They're residential. The thoroughfare plan indicates State Road 13 as an arterial road. The staff has recommended denial of both petitions, and I'll explain a little bit why. When ingress-egress easements, there's been issues with those over the years that I've seen multiple times through the mapping department, where a new owner comes in and denies access through the property, and this requires litigation and can take a lot of time for those to get resolved. And seen it happen probably a dozen times easy. We have in our ordinance, in the subdivision control ordinance, a way to manage that, and that is through the private road. The private road can be utilized as road frontage. So if a private road is put in, this lot would then technically have road frontage. And the private road is something that we can manage. In other words, if somebody tries to block that, we can call that a violation and we can get involved with the situation as opposed to something going through litigation and taking months or years to resolve, and a lot of money. So I would recommend that they utilize the private road that we have. It's very similar to an ingress egress. The only difference is that it's going to be indicated on the lot as such, and there's going to be a maintenance plan with that for both parcels, the proposed lot and the other parcel in which the private road would be located. This is utilized on a number of administrative plats. This is not something that's new or surprising. I would say close to half of the plats we see has a private road on it.
Who would do the maintenance on that?
Both owners. That's every single administrative plat that comes through with a private road requires a maintenance agreement, and it specifies how maintenance is managed by the owners of each parcel.
Would you suggest that to the petitioner?
I don't recall that we had that conversation. I believe I did, but they really wanted an ingress egress easement at this location.
Is this a buildable lot back there?
Oh yes, where it's located at, it's approximately 40 feet above the base flood elevation. So they're actually going to be looking over a ridge.
What's the purpose for having it all every different angle imaginable?
I guess that there's I don't know if it's a family trust, but there's a large family that utilizes this parcel, and they want to limit what is passed on to I think it's their daughter that's going to be acquiring a piece of it, and they're wanting to build in the center where this ridge is. It's a very beautiful location, and that's just the spot that they would really like to be, but the family did not want to give so much of the parcel that it extends to the road. They wanted to take on as much of the parcel as they could.
So is there future plans for other family members to build homes then out there as well?
Don't believe so. I believe this was the only one that is planned.
Would you, so you are actually trying to find a justifiable reason that it would make sense for them to do this because you're concerned about the easement, or at least the recommendation was. Would you explain to me that you're recommending, at least if I understand it correctly, an actual entrance to the 3.5 acres from an existing road, and then it would be like a private road that would have to be maintained by the owners? Is that correct? And that's not what their original plan, their plan was. They were wanting a different type of entrance. Is that what you were saying?
No, the intent is that the family would also take care of their portion of the access easement. They just did not want to give ownership of that access easement to the daughter. They wanted to maintain as much of that property for themselves as possible.
Well, and that kind of complicates it because they enforcement of who maintains the road, right?
Yeah, when you have an ingress egress easement, you can of course place information in a document stating what the maintenance plans are and what have you, but the big issue with the ingress egress easement is we have no jurisdiction over that. Right. So if there are any issues that take place with that, it ultimately comes down to litigation. Whereas with the private road, that ensures that any future owner will be able to utilize that, knowing that the county can enforce that private road.
It's really to look forward more to the next owner.
Correct.
Because now it's all in one family, but you get different people involved there, it can be a whole nightmare.
Okay.
And
Is this owned by a trust now?
I don't believe it is. It's just a family that owns it, and they utilize it as a recreational area.
And so the family is resisting that whole issue of deeding that partial part of the road itself to this 3.5 acres, and it would be a separate parcel.
Correct.
And so
technically it would be a landlocked parcel.
Right.
But with a private road, that again, private roads can be utilized as road frontage. That's specified in the subdivision control ordinance. And so with this private road going back and extending into the proposed parcel would make it, would give it the necessary road frontage to make it legal. In fact, you wouldn't even need a waiver.
So would is there heavier restrictions on a private road versus just egress? Would that have to be by county ordinance paved, or is there stipulations on how that road would have to be built which would complicate maybe the costs, so to speak?
It would be the same as any other driveway. It would need to be able to maintain emergency vehicles.
Okay, all right.
Yes, to get the width right.
Yep.
Do they own that now?
The
3.5 acres?
No, it has not been split up.
Okay, so what they would do then, they would, besides buying the 3.5 acres, they would have to buy the land that the road will be
No,
built on,
they
huh?
would not. The private road would actually be on both parcels. It would extend from State Road 13 east to the proposed split,
Right.
and then it would extend into the proposed split,
So that's both parts.
both parcels.
I see.
So there's not currently a road or driveway that gets back to that.
There is a
3.5
dirt
acres
pathway that's there, but there's not an actual paved road or paved drive.
Anybody here from the family?
Yeah. I'm up.
Morning. Good morning. Have to swear in or anything?
You need to state your name and write your address down.
Okay, I'll get that done.
We gotta buy one. You gotta-
I'll do it, yeah, whatever we need to do.
We expect everybody to tell the truth, just sometimes it doesn't
Well, a
happen.
funny story is Hancock County had an attorney, no offense, he had a legal pad, and they asked him to swear in. He goes, well, I guess this won't be any good, so tried to follow that. My name's Mike Gibson. I'm with H. Gibson Land Surveying in Greenfield, Indiana. Today with me is Teresa Wolfgang. Her and her husband, Jim, own the property, own the 30 acres. And you did a terrific job doing my job. Appreciate it. The son, Ryan, and his wife, Ashley, would like to build a house on the 3.3 acres or 3.5 acres right in the center, as Brad said. The reason that Teresa and her husband would love not to deed any ground, and I think the private road is a clarification that we now know. It's a retirement project for them to come in and kind of restore that property around the 3.5 acres to its original, I guess, being as it was. Teresa shared stories of visiting Grandpa there and growing up and how beautiful the property was. And of course, Mother Nature's taken over now and it's overgrown. And there is an existing gravel drive that used to serve the house that's there and the garage that's there now. So that the proposed plan would be to extend that gravel drive to the new home with only Jim and Teresa and then Ryan and Ashley using that for the house. Our proposal was for an ingress-egress easement. So it'd be a continued gravel drive, and that specs would be per the county. So they just didn't want to deed any more ground than they had to, although Teresa shares that Ryan and his wife probably end up getting the whole 30 acres at some point, but right now that's not the case. So safety issues is only one access. That's another concern that we had, especially off of State Road 13. It's ever growing busier. So one access, and I'm sure the state wouldn't like to see another access off their road anyway. So I think we're all on the same page. Teresa understands and maybe I do a little bit more of the private road. So how would that be shown on the plat if we went that direction, or if they didn't approve the ingress egresses? We can get to that. Awesome. Okay. All right. So that's our number one, and we're going to continue to ask for the ingress egress easement. I think it's all going to be the same. It's just based on how you put it on paper. I do understand that easements can be attached to deeds, and those easements can continue to perpetuate through that process if a piece of property is sold. So an ingress egress easement can go with that deed, and it shouldn't be a problem, although we understand when properties are sold, they can be. But if that easement's attached to that deed, I think we're all going to get to the same goal. So whatever might be easiest. Go ahead, you can come on up. Yeah.
I'm Teresa Wolfgang, and if it's a private road, does it have to be paved like a road? I mean, that's
No.
cost prohibitive
No.
to us
No,
to
it's
do
not.
that.
It does not have to be paved,
Is it
but it has to be gravel, it has to be so wide, it has to be built up enough, so it
The,
doesn't wash out. I mean, there
Yeah,
are some
the
that's
drive,
what you would want anyway, so.
yeah, and the drive, the original drive, I mean, it's been there close to 100 years, and we've extended that. Contractor Brian Brown out of Pendleton made our extending road, and then their builder, the kids, will finish out the driveway to their house. But
Sure.
we had always intended that to be like a common road. However avenue that it needs to go. And like Mike said, the property is a retirement project for us to get it away from its jungle state and back to its pretty state that it was, that I knew when I grew up there as a kid. I mean, I visited my grandparents there, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to clear that paved thing.
Yeah, no.
I have a question.
Yes.
By going to a private, that will give a better access for emergency vehicles, am I right?
That really doesn't play into it either way, whether it's an ingress egress easement or a private road. They'll have to bring it up to that point since they're going to be building a house. Yeah.
And they certainly would want that for any sort of fire or rescue to get to their house yeah.
Yeah, it'll have to look a little different than it did back in her grandfather's days, just because the rules have changed a lot. And for your own safety, it has to be wide enough to get the emergency vehicles.
Sure, I think getting a permit just for a house, whether we're
Yeah,
asking for
you
that
could-
private road or not, it's gonna have to be the county standards, and we'll certainly do that, so. But we ask for what we're here for today. I'm not gonna try to back down from that. I don't have a tremendously better argument than what Brad's given, but
I mean, to me, the only advantage really is the maintenance plan, that would be put in place on that going forward. So if there have to be two different owners 20 years from now, it's written in stone who's going to take care of it, plow the snow, put the stone back down, all that type of thing. Other than that, personally, I could really care less one way or the other. To me, that's the advantage.
Okay. Thank you.
Recently, I purchased 2 lots in a commissioner tax sale, and after I went through that process, I discovered that there's a access drive between the 2 properties, and I can't access one of the lots because the drive is owned by somebody else. And so there's a lot to the south and there's a lot to the north, and I own both of those lots, but I can't access one of the lots that one of the other owners has a garden and a beehive and a whole bunch of other stuff there. So I'm stuck with a lot that I can't get to. I mean, realistically, one side of the lot is a church, the other side of the lot is a driveway that is owned by somebody else. So in the future, if you don't put this in motion, that you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, at some point, somebody else is going to own it, and so that person that owns it has to have access to it. And so I would from that experience that I have, trying to figure out now and having to ask somebody else for permission to use their driveway to access my lot is complicated. And that would become complicated for the next owner. So I would have to say that I agree with the recommendation that we should deny it based on that.
One thing I'd like to point out to you, you may want to research that back a little bit further, because one of the common things that we would see is when the ingress-egress easement would be established and placed on a deed, that description and that easement isn't noted on the next deed.
Yeah, well, this was a new lot that was created that was never picked up.
Oh, wow.
And so it was interesting to me because of the location. You know, it was on Lindbergh Road, and I thought, well, this is good. And so I ended up buying it in the tax sale, but now I've got a problem with access.
Yeah.
So.
Brad, I have a question. I know it's not an intention now, but we're always kind of looking forward for situations. I'm looking at the topo map, and there's some other higher levels within that 3.5, or the overall 30 acres. If somebody would later on down the road would build a house in one of those higher elevation spots, how would they ever get to the road? Would they hook into that road that we're proposing, or would they have to build their own out from that?
If they had no road frontage, they would have to utilize a private road for access, but keep in mind that a private road can only be utilized for 3 parcels. Anything more than that has to be a major subdivision, and you have to follow all of the...
So it would be 3 parcels within that 30, or 3 parcels within the whole parent?
3 parcels within the parent tract,
That's
30
what I thought.
acres. Yep.
That's what I thought.
So they could only do one more split if they're putting in a private road. Otherwise, they would have to create a parcel that had actual road frontage and do it in a manner that it would not create the other parcels as not being in compliance with the zoning ordinance.
Yeah. Well, if they did split, would they come back to the private road that we're proposing, or would they build?
They'd have to, more than likely. I'd have to see where they're doing it and so forth, but yeah.
I'm just thinking ahead about situation. And the egress, like what's proposed originally, how would that be affected? Because that wouldn't work, right, if they build it out?
Well, if you give them the opportunity to utilize the ingress-egress easement, they could do the same for another parcel if the Plan Commission would allow another waiver.
I got you, okay.
Yep. And there would be no restrictions on that 3 parcels.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
I'm aware and know of times when parents gave a lot and something happened and the kids left. And we pretty much decided, I mean, our kids have said, oh, we're going to live here forever, but I know how that goes. Our thought is already, if they decide to sell that, we will just sell the rest of it, because it wouldn't be worth not being whole. And I love that land, and I know my son does, but I know things happen. But our plan would be, if they have to leave, then what do we care? So we would just get rid of all of it. I mean, we would sell with them, if that helps you.
It just makes it a lot simpler if you have the private road, it sounds like it.
Mm-hmm. As long that paved thing, it has to be affordable for us, to do it.
That part's not gonna change. It's gonna cost you the same either way.
As what, paving?
Whether it's paved, no, paving would cost you more, but if it's a private road, it doesn't have to be paved.
Yeah, and it's
no different than it comes from the private road.
It'd be the same road. It'd look exactly the same.
And I think it's good, and we want it to be able to be accessed and everything, so, okay. That's all I want.
Can we table this until you guys, when you can explain to them a little more in detail about the private road situation?
You can certainly table it.
Are they ready to build? I mean,
We're just waiting for the green light.
on this end or from another end?
The builder they've got the builder lined up. We just need everything to be legal, the way that you would want it.
Right.
Brad, how could we table it? Because they would still have to modify their petition in order for us to act on an amended petition. I mean, if we tabled it, we're going to be looking at the same petition the next meeting.
There's no need to table it, or no need for another petition, because the private road's allowed per their ordinance, and as long as they meet the requirements within the subdivision control ordinance with the private road.
So if we just deny this, then they just go ahead
They just
and
submit a
get there
plat with the private road.
and go.
And again, as long as they meet the requirements, which
Sure.
I think they're not going to have any problems with that.
So they have to bring it back to us for private road?
No,
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 no.
not if it's denied.
Yep.
Well, I make a motion then that petition 2021-W-003 and 2021-W-004 be denied as recommended.
Let's explain to them. I'm gonna explain this for you,
I
okay?
would love to do that because it makes me sad. Right?
Yeah, so I think your facial expression. So the reason why we're gonna deny it is so then you can just go ahead and go through the process of adding as a private road instead of this process. And it makes it easier for you guys. So as Brad will explain to you guys the private road situation, compared to having to be like this, it's not gonna cost you any more money. So, you know, like, Mr. Richwine was saying, you don't have to pave it, and so everything will be exactly the same. So Brad explained it to you, but we're gonna deny it here, so you don't have to go through this process, okay? Which is a good thing for you.
Well, good.
What takes place is anytime you split property, you have to go through what's called our administrative plat process, which is a minor subdivision. And in order to do that, you have to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And an ingress-egress easement does not meet those requirements. And having no road frontage doesn't meet those requirements. That's why you petition for those waivers. But if you use the private road, you can structure it in a way where it does meet all the requirements, and you have no need to be in front of the board. Yep.
And is that another?
Nope. It is, but it's all administrative. You won't have to attend anything.
I'll second that motion.
Well, if it's been, we have a motion, we need a second.
I'll second it.
No, you made it.
No, I
No,
made
No,
it.
Jerry made
Oh,
it.
that's right, you made it, you seconded it. Okay, I'm fine. Okay, I'm fine. We need a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Denise Spooner,
Yes.
Jerry Alexander,
Yes.
Lindsey Brown,
Yes.
Corey Bolander,
Yes.
John Richwine,
Yes.
John Zimmerman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. I hate losing, but it felt like I won anyway.
Please make that easy for her, Brad.
All right, Brad, we're gonna go right into that, or what do we need to do?
Yeah, the next item on the agenda is the public hearing for the solar farm moratorium. And that's up to the board how you want to manage that.
So what we're basically looking at is we're looking to extend the moratorium for a period of time between now and when it's adopted, correctly? Do we have
6
to do-
months or when it's adopted.
Yeah, it's up to you what you want to put in there. Just for housekeeping purposes, if we could suspend the public meeting and open a public hearing onto, because this is a zoning change. It's that 1600 series of the law, and so it does require a public hearing, which has been noticed. And so,
Okay.
if you would, just provide a motion to suspend the public meeting to open a public hearing. And then anything we talk about, either you guys or anybody that's here, to be
Right.
part of that
Okay,
hearing transfer.
I'd make a motion that we suspend the meeting until after the public meeting on the solar farm moratorium.
I second that.
okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
If you want me to speak just a minute on this.
Sure. That'd be great.
At the last meeting, as you know, there was a motion to look at having another solar moratorium. It actually would not be an extension because as of right now, there is not a solar moratorium. It will be a new one. This board voted unanimously to have a hearing for the solar moratorium. So it's, with that being said, I think that indicates somewhat what the thought process is in this room right now. As Jeff said, it has been noticed, and the notice does state, or the proposal was 6 months, or as soon as the solar ordinance is adopted. Of course, you can modify that. You're certainly allowed to do that through the public hearing process, and you will be making a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to either adopt as proposed or so forth. So this, during this time, you can take public testimony or direct it however you wish.
Right. Does anybody on the board first have any questions about this? I know
I've got like
Sure.
maybe two questions for
Sure.
Brad. Are you gonna have your work done, you think, in 6 months? Or do you need longer than that? And just so everybody's on the same page, if we do adopt 6 months, you can make it, we can come back and extend that, and the commissioners can extend that. If you make it longer than 6 months, with the caveat that whenever the ordinance is passed, then it would just go away whenever the commissioners pass the ordinance that would be passed from this board.
I'll have my work done. I don't know if it'll be passed or not because who knows how the discussion is going to go.
I don't see it maybe happening in 6 months.
Yeah, it may not.
I guess it's trying to kind of want to.
Yeah. But I intend on definitely having a public hearing on it before and in plenty of time to have it done within that period. But with all the discussion that's likely to take place, it may take much longer.
But it is better to have a stop date than it is to then extend it.
That was the suggestion, yes.
What is the realistic goal then for the time frame? I mean,
That's a tough thing to do because what this could ping pong back and forth between the Plan Commission and the Board of Commissioners multiple times. Could also get adopted on the first shot. You know, this, if it's adopted on the first shot, then you're probably looking at within 2 months it's done. If it ping pongs back and forth, it can go on a year or longer. It just depends. This commission may make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, and the Board of Commissioners wish to change it. And then at that point, it comes back to you to look at it again. And if you don't like the changes that the commissioners made, you could alter it again, and it goes back to the commissioners, and it could just keep ping-ponging. And if that doesn't happen, it could be done rather quick. But if it does happen, it can certainly extend for some time.
But the key thing is, then it's movement, though. At least it's movement.
Correct.
So we are working towards some kind of progress, right?
Correct.
But if not, like I said, we're not doing anything, we're not doing anything.
Right.
And when would this moratorium take place?
If the commissioners adopt it, it would be the day they adopt it. If they chose not to adopt it, it would take place, assuming the Planning Commission makes a favorable recommendation to do that, it takes place 60 days after.
Okay.
If the Planning Commission passes a favorable recommendation, but the commissioners refuses to make a motion on it, it becomes law 60 days from the Planning Commission meeting. So it'd be 60 days from today.
Okay.
Otherwise,
I'm just trying to think of how to protect the county the best we can.
Otherwise,
That's
it would
only
take place.
That's only if the commissioners did make a vote.
Correct. If the commissioners
Which
make
the
a
if the commissioners have a meeting next Tuesday.
Right.
So
Oh, okay.
that's, I don't see that being an issue.
Okay. All right.
So it becomes law the second the commissioners vote on it.
Right.
I have another question. I wanted to know if any of the Planning Commission members, or Brad, did any of you attend the Purdue University's Indiana Land Use Summit last week? They had a 2-day conference. Much of the discussion was on large-scale solar and what is happening throughout the state of Indiana. Did anybody get a chance to attend those?
Unfortunately, I did not.
Okay.
Wes was talking about it. I don't know if
There's a
Wes said he
meeting-
was going to go.
There's another meeting Thursday in Muncie that I'm going to be attending with regard to large-scale solar. So I can send the details out on that.
Appreciate that.
I had paid to go to a meeting discussing just that a couple weeks ago on a Thursday.
$60, I think, is what it costs to go.
And I was registered to do it, but my grandfather's funeral was that day, at that time.
Right.
It was actually from 1 or in the afternoon of that Thursday.
Yeah,
So.
My question is, Brad, have you had any consultation with the state legislatures that are working on the state's legislature's bill as it relates to solar, large-scale solar? And, you know, just having a conversation with them, in my frame of reference, would be a good investment of time so that you could understand the state's position versus, I actually had a conversation with the lieutenant governor last week about it. And, you know, the state obviously is concerned about long-term effects of like natural gas. I mean, it was in the news yesterday that natural gas is going to increase in price significantly, and everybody is going to be impacted by that. And so, you know, the state has to find alternative sources of energy because they're closing down all the coal manufacturers. In fact, this year they'll be gone. And it has to become electricity has to come from natural gas, and it's going to increase the demand, which increases the price, and it's going to impact everybody. So if you looked at the states, how they're looking at this, it might be helpful, I think.
I have looked at the legislation that they proposed, but I have not had a discussion with them. I'll work on getting.
They were trying to propose that some time ago, weren't they? And then it failed.
It was this last year that they were proposing it. Yeah.
I would like to add that I did attend the Indiana Land Use Summit, both days, 6 hours of education. I recorded all of them. I have the agenda notes, and we'd be happy to share that with all of you. I can send a Google Drive link to you, Brad, if you'd like to listen.
Absolutely.
My opinion about that is that there was a lot of discussion about what the current problems are, what the counties have faced, the pressures. There's tons of information presented as to what, you know, we are facing, dilemmas, but there was very little resources as to what to do, very little advice as what we should look at for our zoning. There was no offering of, you know, here's a sample ordinance you can go by. There really was very little evidence of, you know, help, you know, other than this is going to be a struggle with responsible land development. There was a Michigan State University representative that was there that I have always found her to be very quite honest in her endeavors to present more factual and truthful data as what is happening. She does a pretty good job with that, so I'd highly recommend at least listening to her part. I can't remember her name exactly, but I do have some documents from Michigan State Cooperative Extension that was placed in the public not quite a year ago that was actually written for landowners considering solar leases. There were several excellent advices to that. One of the things were that be careful about the leases containing first rights and options on the land to purchase it. And I would prefer having in our ordinance too a request that those leases be part of the application process, that the Planning Commission or BZA has the opportunity to look at what is between the landowner and the solar developer. One of the interesting parts too that she brought up was that it is very unclear with solar developers what their future intentions are to keep the source going or to restore the land. And I think that's something that planning commissions and BZAs really need to think about and look at this, because as responsible development, if this is a crisis that we are in with energy and they're going to do away with fossil and coal and natural gas, then shouldn't these developments be permanent? Why would you decommission this? If this plant's going to blow up, and we believe in global warming and climate change, and we need this energy, why would they be decommissioned? To me, we need to have responsible development to where they can continue to have this energy. I mean, what are they going to do? Decommission and go find another 2,000 acres someplace of our prime farmland? That is something that we really need to consider. And then even in the decommissioning plan from Invenergy, it states that at the end of the life project, they have the right to come back before the Planning Commission and renew these panels and keep the energy source going. And if that is the case, then I would like to know how that preserves our prime farmland. If it never gets back to agricultural activity, how does that meet our comprehensive plan? So those are two big discussions that was lacking, but at least the Michigan State University representative brought that up and made a very good point that we need to hold the developers responsible as to what their future intentions are. And if this land is going to be sold to this company, many of the companies are foreign owned. Last I knew, Wildcat Turbine Project is owned by Germany. This land may not be American farmland anymore. As a county extension agent, I was appointed here. I went through an application process. There were other candidates. I went through an interview last Friday. Some tough questions were presented to me. But one of the things that I had told the county extension is that I understand the comprehensive plan. I've read it. Brad, you and I have talked many times about the prime farmland and how we should do our best to preserve that. And I would, even in the Lone Oak Solar, there was nothing stated to this developer that they must return the land back to ag. There was nothing put in there as a condition for that. So one of my responses, I had two questions in regards to agricultural lands for Madison County. And I am for responsible development, and I do want to protect and preserve our prime farmland. The last study I've looked at, we lose 175 acres every hour. And in their comprehensive plan, the new one, it talks about the numbers of agricultural lands we've already lost in Madison County for development. I just want to, keep an eye on that. And obviously the board shared those same concerns too. So I really would, again, I'll send you the stuff for that, that conference. We need to continue to open these debates. And I was involved in House Bill 1381. I was at the State House every time I could get there. If you look at that and compared to the counties that have said no to solar and wind, it's just that we have stricter setbacks, just a little more stricter ordinance rules. And one of the other things I will say from that Purdue University thing is the pictures they showed of solar farms being proposed are of these small scale. They are not what's coming, and that was one of the things that was brought up to her and to the attention of Purdue University, is they need to present photographs of what is actually coming to Indiana, because it looks nothing like the photographs that they have. Again, there's no homes being surrounded on 3 and 4 sides. So what the State House is proposing, there's a lack of understanding of truth, very misleading documentation on what they're proposing there and what is happening throughout Indiana. So we need to take a look at that and protect all citizens, all property owners on both sides. So I just wanted to put that data out there and that information, and I'll send it to you, Brad, so you can share with others.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? I think we made it pretty clear how we all kind of feel on this moratorium. But do we need to open it up to the public?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I hope you all understand kind of where we're coming from. We all agree that we need to have some kind of protection within the county before the new ordinance is final. So we've talked about adding or having a moratorium in there for 6 months minimum, or until it's adopted, and then we could extend it after that. I think we all feel that we're trying to protect our county the best we can in terms of just not having somebody sneak in here and do this before we have all the rules and everything in place. So with that said, if anybody in the audience wants to speak other than what we just stated, you can come forward.
I want to make one statement before we do that. I want to point out, this was brought up at the last meeting, but I think it's important and needs to be said, and that was that we did take a proposed moratorium to the commissioners last year. There was a motion made by Commissioner Richwine. It
Yes.
was not seconded, so
correct.
there was no action taken. And that was one of the reasons we didn't move forward with the moratorium, because of that. So I just wanted to point that out.
And now we have a different board and.
Now we have a different board of commissioners.
So.
Yep.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak at this time?
Hello.
Need to state your name and.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
write it
My
down
name's
there.
Joan Krieg, and I live on the County Line Road. Across the street's Hancock. There's my property's Henry. So I'm the last farm in the county. I've lived there since 1971. So I have a vested interest in this farm.
Sure.
And this property. If you put the solar energy in using the Wilkinson farm, it will cover 2 complete sides of my property, and I have 20-some acres. I bought agricultural, not commercial, not industrial property. I didn't have a problem with the CAFO going on across the street from me, because if you bought out in the country and you bought agricultural, you got agriculture. You shouldn't gripe about it. Hog farm's a hog farm, cattle farm's a cattle farm. I was very much involved with 4-H in the ag department. So I was a 4-H leader for many years.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. I would like to know if you will hold a public hearing on, first of all, who's writing the ordinances? You are. I'm sorry, you're Brad. What's your last name? I've met you before. You told my son to apply for a job as a surveyor. He's got an agricultural degree from Ball State. Yeah. Is there going to be a public hearing to
Yes,
review the
yes.
order? No,
There's
to
a whole-
review the ordinances.
Yes.
Strictly.
Yes.
It'll be several.
Be several.
And you will take public input.
Right. All we're doing today
I know what you're
is
doing today.
is just protecting the county. Has nothing to do with what's in the rules, has nothing to do with any
Okay.
of that.
Well, first of all, I want you to know everybody on our road has taken water samples of their wells. I worked for IMI for years, so I know there's a Fusier system that runs from Alexander Pike down through. If you are taking and you're going across 38 to that big field there that when I bought the property, that was a small electric field. I knew something was coming when they started extending it. It runs down. When I dug my pond in 1976, I hit gravel. I know that Fusier system runs up through there, and all our wells are on it. I will tell you also down the road, they are not on the exact same Fusier system as I am. Okay? I've called across the country. I show dogs, so I have friends all over the United States, and I've gotten in touch with people that I know in Arizona and California and up north that have solar panel fields fairly close to them within a mile radius. The one in Arizona, Dr. Mimi Brown informed me that she has thousands of dollars. I showed Dobermans. She has thousands and thousands of dollars in her dog. There is a distinct hum that radiates from her solar panels, and they are almost a mile away. It irritates her dog. She's got them on drugs. The other is, I had talked to the lady in California. California, I don't know. She told me that it affects her Wi-Fi. I have a 3-year-old son that lives in our house. He's had 3 open heart surgeries. He's only 3. He's scheduled for another one in the spring. His equipment is on Wi-Fi. It is attached to doctors at Riley, and it's attached to his pediatrician over in Westfield. No, not Westfield. I can't even think, but she's the head of all pediatrics for community hospitals. If it's going to affect Wi-Fi, I have a big problem with that. If you allow this to go through, he's a dead little guy, because we'll never know when his equipment goes off.
So all we're talking about today is just putting on.
I know, but I
It
probably
has
won't,
nothing to do with what you're saying.
I probably will not get to make to the next, and I just want to get my sentence out. My daughter also owns, I put her name, I solved the lady's problem, I just put my kid, rider survivorship, and my daughter's on it. So, I'm just upset that you would even consider doing this. I understand we have a need for energy. I understand that. Oh, I have another friend that's just down south in Indiana. A car went off the road and went right into the solar panels, and that was 3 years ago. They haven't even been out to repair them, and they're all rusted because that wasn't written in the ordinance. So almost everything you said was in my main concern. So anyway, I just wanted you to know. And I think that's a big problem back here in the back with the rest of the people that are here, is our water, our air, the chemicals that leach out of the solar panels, and I know they do have chemicals in them, and go into the future system. So we have a baseline for all our wells right now. I have a 3-acre pond on my property. I've never had a fish kill ever since 1976. If we have a fish kill or we have well problems, we have a baseline and we'll know it. That's all I gotta say.
I just want to point out before we go any further, we have not received any petitions for any new solar farm development in our office. If this solar moratorium takes place and is approved next Tuesday by the Board of Commissioners, we cannot accept any solar farm petitions for the length of that moratorium. And if the ordinance is not adopted within that period, I would imagine that the board will extend that moratorium and continue until that ordinance is adopted. But as far as what's going on in the town of Markville, we have absolutely no knowledge on this other than what the citizens have told us, because nothing has been brought to our attention by any company. Nobody has come to speak with us. Nobody has sent any information to us as far as the developer themselves. Obviously, they are interested. They are going around. They are talking to property owners, but they have not reached a point where they've talked to us. I just wanted to make that point. So today's action will just ensure that no developer can put in a petition for a large-scale solar farm in Madison County until that moratorium is ended or we have an ordinance that handles it.
Any more community?
Hello, Michael Garinger. I'm from 620 Norris Drive, and I just have a brief comment about the moratorium and maybe some suggestions to include in it. First comment is the global warming movement has got a basis of about 80 years of data, and considering we're coming out of an ice age, about 1 million years out of an ice age, just keep in mind that it's not necessarily based in science. I don't know that all of you agree with that or not, but that's my opinion. And then the other thing is the windmills. The propellers are made out of fiberglass and substances that don't decompose, and they do go to landfills as well as the solar panels. So perhaps a moratorium should include something that's directive of how they're going to take care of those things when they need to be replaced. And also the changes in your infrastructure, the sizes of your roads, in order to get those huge propellers down the roads and under the power lines and into the location for replacement. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Matthew Hoppy. I live on the corner of 800 South and 400 East. I emailed some of you guys, so my concern is in 30 years we're going to feed ourselves. You know, we got problems with groundwater already. Do these things need to be cooled, tapped into, or does that discharge waste go? And you said something previously about 20% of prime farmland maybe in your next upcoming proposal. I think that comes out to about 41,000 acres. Do we think that's appropriate to do with our farmland? So I just hope you guys do the right thing. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, my name is Kaylee Albert, and I live on 800 South. I'm sure that some of you have heard my name going around. So I actually was approached by a solar developer that came to my door, who informed me that they wanted to take all four sides around my house. I have about 3 acres. A super nice barn that the Fredericks family built. It's something that we moved from the Geist, Fishers, McCordsville area. My husband actually grew up in Hancock County in the country. I am from the city. And we moved our children out here to, do 4-H, to have an agricultural lifestyle. And I hope that you guys will do the right thing and listen to the people who pay the taxes in this county. And because I have not talked to any of my neighbors, I have spent a lot of my personal time. I am a mom to 3 kids. I work full time. I'm a nurse, and I've spent so much time going from Markleville all the way over to the Hamilton-Madison County line talking to people. And other than the people who see a financial gain for their families, which I can appreciate, we're all out to do what's right for our families, make ourselves money, give to our next generation of children. But we also have to protect those in this community. And by surrounding people on 2, 3, 4 sides, that's not okay. And I think that you have heard an overwhelming majority of people in the last 3 years that have said, don't do this, and we continue to keep just going and going and going and not having any resolution. And we just keep going month to month to month, and I really hope that everybody votes in favor to reinstate a moratorium and protect the people of this county.
Okay, would anybody like to speak that would be against a moratorium? I guess that's what we're looking. We've heard you've heard a lot of board people say that we would like to have a moratorium. Is there anybody against the moratorium? That's what we're asking for. Okay, is there any other questions from the board?
I just want to make one last statement. I'd like to see this ordinance be done prior to legislation session at our state. One thing that did happen with House Bill 1381 is there were amendments being made from both sides, actually, Senate and Representative side. One of those amendments gave grandfather rights. I don't know how else to explain that, but 2 counties that were had their ordinances already complete. However, did not mention there was a lot of discussion back and forth of counties that were under moratorium or in the process. So if we fail to get this done, who knows what the legislative session could propose to the state. I will tell you, I've read the House Bill 1381 in the words of Henry County folks that fought hard to preserve home rule in Indiana. I will just quote what they said. It was a love letter to renewable energy companies. Setbacks and the standards were extremely inadequate. And again, what I'm telling you is what I just heard from Purdue University and the things that have been presented. Is a very large misrepresentation of truly what is happening in our rural communities. And Shelby County has done a fantastic job for the rural communities down there to express agricultural documentation and things. But anyway, I would like to see this done before the legislative session. If there's any way possible that we could do that, it would be greatly appreciated. And I also do want to say I thank Commissioner Ridgewine for trying to keep the moratorium going. It should have been seconded. We should have kept this. It should have never expired in the first place, if you want my opinion. This county should have been protected from day one, regardless of whatever. So it should have kept in place. So I appreciate that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
With the new bill, Brad, when we have the rules that we want in the county, we can surpass whatever is in the state bills and make it stricter than what the state bill would be. Is that correct?
Yes, the prior bill, that was how they worded it, that
Right.
if a county adopted an ordinance prior to the adoption of the state,
Yeah.
then that ordinance would be the prevailing ordinance. The state one would not.
But if we do it after, then we can't have it stricter than what the state bill would be.
The current ordinance was stricter than what the state bill
Well,
was.
I understand that, but I'm saying if we don't have one in there before the state bill would happen to be passed.
You can't supersede the state.
Then it'd go back to the existing ordinance that's there.
Okay.
I think that what they were trying to establish was a state standard. So that standard had to be followed by all government entities, and the only way you could bypass that is if you had an ordinance that took place prior.
Okay.
Well,
All right. So I guess I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I put a motion on the floor to accept the solar farm moratorium.
I just want to make a point of order. Were we in executive session?
We were in a public hearing.
Public hearing.
Should we need
Public
to?
hearing and reconvene. Public meeting.
The other thing that you haven't determined, but you can get with your discussion, is how long you would like it to be, how you would like it worded. So
I'll say
That could be done outside the public hearing. That would be procedural, but.
Okay, you want to close this out?
I'd make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, now we're back to,
Got to vote on it.
oh yeah. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we're back to a public meeting, so we can entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the solar farm moratorium for 60 days.
No.
6 months.
6 months, I'm sorry, 6 months, sorry.
6 months or until an ordinance.
As it's written, it's 180 days. We could currently change it to 6 months. It's a slight difference, but
Let's do 6 months.
6 months.
Yes,
Yes.
Or until, pardon me, or until an ordinance is in effect.
yes.
Yes, I appreciate that second.
Okay.
Or until an ordinance is in effect.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
So I want to make sure I got this right. So you would implement a new moratorium for 6 months would be the minimum, or until the new ordinance is adopted? Is that
No,
correct?
the 6 months would be the maximum.
So what if the ordinance comes after 6 months? They would have to extend the
We'd
moratorium.
extend it.
Extend the moratorium.
All right, thank you.
So 6 months is the maximum, not the
Yeah.
minimum. Okay.
And again, I want to make a point that it does not impact the existing solar project, the Invenergy project,
It's true.
where we have no impact over that particular project.
that's correct.
That's correct. Okay, it's been first and second. We'd like to have a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Denise Spooner,
Yes.
Jerry Alexander,
Yes.
Lindsey Brown,
Yes.
Corey Bowlander,
Yes.
John Richwine,
Yes.
John Zimmerman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Brad, do you have anything else in miscellaneous or?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
It's been first, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.